There's no parallel universe, as they say in Marvel. There's none of that where Michigan doesn't beat the doors off this Michigan State team. I told you how it could happen, but I damn sure know it won't happen. But since Xavier Henderson wanted to open his mouth and say, I bet you know his name now, he had 4 tackles. You have 4 tackles. Congratulations. You still gave up 550 yards of total offense. What we said was your defense sucked. And here we are, 365 almost to the day, and your defense is actually even worse. So I would pipe down and see what you guys got going on Saturday. Well, the rest of the Big Ten is maybe waiting for Tuck to come, but Michigan definitely has seen Tuck come twice in 2 years. They put 2 wins, the COVID year. They got a W last year. They stole a win from Michigan. Look, they're 0-2. In the last 2 years against Michigan State, Michigan's 0-2. And you look at Mel Tucker, we talk about understanding the rivalry. Mel Tucker was here in 98-99 with Nick Saban. Mel Tucker was in Ohio State. Mel Tucker went to Wisconsin. Mel Tucker's been in Wisconsin. Mel Tucker's been in the Big Ten now for year 3. Mel Tucker understands the rivalry that is Michigan and Michigan State. He understands the house divided. He understands the workplace divided, as you said. So he's going to have those guys ready. Like, they're not a good football team, but when you got a guy that understands the rivalry, I mean, expect the kitchen sink in the first quarter. Whatever they can, they will do. Michigan has to just prepare for the blunt, take the blunt of the blow, and then after that, it's time to roll.
Michigan State has won the last 2 games by a total of 7 points. And that's really what they're going to have to do this week. We anticipate if Michigan State is going to somehow, some way win this football game. I really don't know how it's going to happen if they do it. Does Michigan State... Braylon, I'll put it to you. You're much smarter about this stuff than I am. Is there a blueprint for Michigan State to win this football game?
There is. You know, if you're just looking at Michigan State, you're looking at football this season between these 2 teams. J.J. McCarthy hasn't shown you that he can beat you with the pass. J.J. McCarthy is throwing some wide receiver screens. J.J. McCarthy has a high completion percentage, but he's not throwing the ball over 10 yards. He's not throwing it down the field. A couple times that he's tried to connect on deep passes, he hasn't connected. He's just missed Roman Wilson by a hair a couple of times, missed Ronnie Bell a couple of times. I think he's missed Andrew Anthony a time or 2. So he hasn't proven that he can beat you in the past. He hasn't proven that he can throw for 380, much like Kate McNamara did last year in this same game around this same time. So if I'm you, man, you got to find a way to stop the run on 1st and 2nd down. You got to put them in passing distance. It's got to be 3rd and long, 3rd and 7 to 10. You got to get some sacks. You got to get turnovers. You got to find a way to each out. Maybe you get a turnover on special teams. Maybe your special teams is the unit that helps you out this game. That can happen as well. There are ways in which this can be a game mucked up by Michigan. It's got to be able to put J.J. McCarthy in passing situations and make him beat you. You can't allow you to be sitting back and it's 2nd and 4. You can't allow Michigan to sit there at 3rd and 1 and have every play in their playbook at their disposal. You got to get them 3rd and long on passing downs so that you can make J.J. McCarthy, an unproven sophomore, beat you guys at home.
There's no blueprint. Braylon was being nice.
But that's football, though. It's not gonna happen. But if it were, then that would be the only way I would see it, man.
They would have to hit the transfer portal for about 5 or 6 players by tomorrow. Get them in and show them what to do. Michigan is going to blow their doors off, flat out.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case as well.
They owe them.
Just playing devil's advocate, you know, and we talk about it. The big thing with Michigan is this would be different if Michigan had won last year, or maybe Michigan had won the year before, and you're sitting here with either winning last year or you won the year before. So you split over the last 2 years with Mel Tucker and maybe riding the wave of 7-0, and now people are talking about you amongst the elite. And now people say, you know, I think this is the year that Michigan, if they beat Ohio State and Columbus, then they can win the national championship. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a Michigan team that lost 2 in a row so far to Mel Tucker. They lost last year. It stopped them from going 12-0. They had a sour taste in their mouth. Michigan State with the 33-37 on the Peach Bowl rings only added insult to injury both ways. I'm telling you, there's no world. There's no parallel universe, as they say in Marvel. There's none of that where Michigan doesn't beat the doors off this Michigan State team. I told you how it could happen, but I damn sure know it won't happen.
I know Xavier Henderson is probably not going to be as boisterous this time as he was last year. I could pretty much tell you that.
Well,
I know he's not playing. But
speaking of which, here's what he had to say, the young man, Xavier Henderson, last year after
What they
the.
talking about now, huh? What they talking about now? It sounded good. It sounded good before the game. Thanks, Mike Hart. Coach D said it'll never be over. Still not over. Thanks, Winovich. Thanks, Luan. Thanks, Braylon Edwards. I bet you know Chuck Brantley's name now, don't you? It sounded good, but I don't know what they're talking about now. And thanks, Spartan Nation, for being out there and sticking with us through the game while we were down. They stayed with us. I didn't see anybody leave, so we appreciate y'all from the bottom of our hearts.
So if you listen to Xavier Henderson last year, this was last year after the game in which they got a victory. Before that, earlier in the week, Ryan and Ermanni and myself were talking about we couldn't name anybody on Michigan State's defense. Now it was all sarcasm, but
That was like the first week of the season.
it was like the first. It was a little later than that.
Yeah.
It was a little later. Okay, week three
Either
or
way,
before.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it was a joke. That's what we do on the show. But since Xavier Henderson wanted to open up his mouth and say, "I bet you know his name now," he had 4 tackles. You have 4 tackles. Congratulations. You still gave up 550 yards of total offense. You let Cade McNamara, who's a guy that hadn't passed for 180 yards, throw for 384 yards. You let our running backs go for $150 again. You didn't get any sacks. You didn't get to the quarterback. You did exactly what I said you guys were going to do. You're a bad defense. They got bailed out by K9. You got the W, so I'm going to leave it there and say congratulations. But since that game, what'd you do next week? Oh, you guys gave a 40 to Purdue. What you do 2 weeks after that? 56 to Ohio State. What we said was your defense sucked. And here we are, 365 almost to the day, and your defense is actually even worse. So I would pipe down and see what you guys got going on Saturday.
You played.
You know what
Exactly.
time it is. You know what time it is. That's right. Tell him, Braylon Edwards. Yeah, you're going to have some get back this week. I think Michigan will blow the doors off. You talk about rushing the football in Michigan State's defense, stopping the run. One of the worst teams, I believe they are the worst in the Big Ten.
They are.
No, Northwestern.
Northwestern.
Northwestern, Nebraska. Okay, Northwestern, Nebraska.
Who they only beat by 10, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So, what are they ranked 12th out of 14 teams in rushing yards against at 153 yards a game? Michigan might rush the ball for 400 yards against them.
Hey, just a side note, you brought up Northwestern. It reminded me of something I read yesterday. A gentleman on Twitter went through the Big Ten West, and he did all these scenarios. Do you know there's a little chance still that Northwestern can represent the West in the playoffs,
awesome.
in the Big Ten championship game, and they've lost to an FBS school. I mean, the guy really did his homework, but there is an opportunity for Northwestern, who won last week with their little white helmets last week. They knocked off Maryland. With that one, they could still win the Big Ten West.
It's real interesting and weird over there. I mean, Illinois obviously is the front runner right now, but even they struggled. They lost last week. You got Purdue over there. Northwestern got a win. It's ugly on that side. It is the West, which is usually only 2 teams, Iowa and Minnesota. It's real funky this year. Whoever wins between Michigan and Ohio State seems like they'll have a much easy road to the playoffs.